Don't you always feel better after a good glass of wine with a girlfriend? Me too. That's what we're here for. To connect, to drink wine, to feel good. Welcome to the Happy Moms Wine Club. I'm your host, Jenny Angel. If you have little ones in the room with you today, you may want to put your earbuds in because from time to time, I will use swear words or drop a truth bomb about motherhood that you may not want little ears to hear. So grab your earbuds and put them in because today, I'll do both. Okay, I'll give you a minute, but listen to your choices. You have to pick one. You're in a dark room with your high school boyfriend. Would you rather play Spin the Bottle or Truth or Dare? That's a no-brainer, huh? Off in the game, Would You Rather, which is what you just played by picking Spin the Bottle, because let's be honest, you all secretly picked Spin the Bottle, right? It's fun and exciting because it causes a visceral response. Today we're going to use the game Would You Rather for a much higher purpose than causing your naughty bits to tingle thinking about a teenager you once loved who, in reality, is probably fat and bald by now. We're going to use the game as a tool for you to learn more about you. I'll tell you why this is so important after we play a little. I don't want to tell you now because I don't want to skew your answers. Okay, would you rather have a glass of wine at home with your partner on a Friday night or go to a friend's house for a party? Would you rather have sex the same way you always have sex? If it's not broken, don't fix it. Or experiment with something new in the sack. John Mayer says, "My body is a wonderland. I'm ready to be explored." Would you rather take a walk in nature or go to a concert at the convention center? Would you rather talk with a friend one-on-one, or do you say the more the merrier? Would you call reading a book something you love or something teachers forced upon you in grade school? Would you rather listen or speak in a large group of people? If you chose the first answer to most of these questions, my guess is you're an introvert. If you chose the second answer to most of these questions, it's probable you're an extrovert. If you would be happy with either the first or second choice, then you may be an ambivert. Today I'm going to tell you the difference between an introvert, an extrovert, and an ambivert, and we'll talk about why this is important in your parenting and your friendships. Before I go any further, I want to say there is no one way to be that's better than another. Is it true that introvert moms parent very differently than extrovert moms? Yes. Today we're talking about introverts and extroverts so that we can understand our strengths and weaknesses more and start to identify in our life not what's missing that we could be better at, but rather who in our life is wired differently and how can we help each other out. Of course, I'll share one of my mom fails with you, and my hope is that you'll learn from my mistakes and find that learning from my failures will add to your successes. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that this topic doesn't apply to you because you already know what an introvert and an extrovert are. Today we're diving deeper. As we talk about whichever one you identify with, you'll feel validated and known. As we talk about the type that's opposite of you, you'll learn about your loved ones, and people in your life will come to mind that you need to partner with to get your needs and your family's needs met. If you are an extrovert, I guarantee you that you have a very important introvert in your life. It may be your spouse. Opposites attract. It may be one of your kids, and it's possible you've experienced the same mom fail that I'll talk about today. It may even be one of your parents or siblings that you'll think about and see in a new light after listening to this podcast. Whoever comes to mind while you listen today will be someone you love, and understanding yourself and them better will make a huge difference. If somebody had told me what I'm about to tell you before I became a mom, I would have been able to understand my needs more and put structures in place to make sure I got those needs met. It would have saved me a lot of suffering, especially in the first 5 years. When Tyler and Maya were little, we'd go to the huge public pool with the big winding water slide that you could ride down on a clear plastic inner tube with the dark blue handles. At the other side of the same pool was the baby end, where a big red bucket high in the air would fill up slowly and then tip over and splash freezing cold water on the toddlers in swim diapers standing below. They'd scream and shiver and clap their hands and wait for the bucket to fill up and for the excitement to start all over again. We'd been going to this pool every summer since my kids were pudgy toddlers, slathered in sunscreen and waddling around with saggy swim diapers. I remember being so excited after a couple years had gone by when Maya and Tyler were finally both 48 inches tall and we could go on the big kid water slide together and get away from all the ice water induced toddler squealing. The problem that I didn't expect was Maya didn't want to go on the big slide. "What's up, babe? I thought you were excited to swim today," I said. Lots of silence from Maya. "Do you want to go on a double tube with me? We can do it together." More silence. "Can you put your thoughts on loudspeaker, Maya? I can't read your mind, and I just want to know what you're thinking." More silence. I waited. I waited more. "I don't want to go," she says. I'm frustrated. I'm sick of waiting, so I say, "Okay, I'm going to go down with Ty. Just stay right here and watch until we get back, okay?" She doesn't say anything. I watch her the whole time Ty and I climb the winding metal staircase up to the top of the huge slide. Whenever Ty and I stop to wait in line, we wave at her from up above. She pretends not to see us. Ty and I finally reach the top of the stairs. We have a blast sliding down on the double inner tube. My laughter and excitement is squashed, though, when I see Maya's face just staring at us. I feel guilty for having fun, while she just sits there, which quickly flips to being mad at her for making me feel guilty and for not participating. After each time we slide down the water slide, we stop by Maya's spot, drip water on her a little to try to make her laugh, unsuccessfully, of course. Then we invite her to join us again. Each time she stays wrapped in her towel, planted firmly on her plastic lounge chair. Finally, 3 hours has gone by, and it's almost time to close the pool for the day. "Please go with me," I beg her. "I promise I'll hold on tight and it'll be really fun." To my amazement, she unwraps her towel and stands up. "Okay," she says quietly. I know not to waste a moment and give her a chance to think about what this means. I grab her hand and start walking quickly towards the steps. I nervously held my breath when we got to the top of the stairs and had to wait in line for a few people to go down the water slide ahead of us. I was sure she wanted to back out, and if I said anything at all, she'd lose it. Her little body was shaking. She was so nervous. Finally, it was our turn. I sat down on the inner tube, pulled her securely down onto my lap, wrapped my arms tightly around her like a straitjacket, and watched the lifeguard for the signal that it was safe to go. "All right," he said. I pushed off. Our stomachs dropped out from under us as we lurched over the top edge and swooshed down the slide. We tipped and turned and plunged lower and faster. The whole time we raced down, Maya was silent. We crashed to a stop into the pool at the bottom, and I couldn't wait even a second. "Are you okay?" I asked, terrified that I'd traumatized her. "That was fun," she said. "Can we do it again?" "Oh my gosh, phew!" I thought, she's okay. What I said was, "Sorry, babe, that was our last ride of the day. The pool's closing now, we've got to go." She started whining. "I want to go again." I'll admit, I was mad at her for sitting out and not talking to me all day, so the whining took me over the edge. I unleashed on her. "Maya, stop. You had all day to go down the slide, and you waited until the very last second to go." "But Tyler got to go," she added, with tears building in her eyes. "That's right. Tyler got to go a lot today. Next time when I ask you to join us, say yes. Don't wait forever and then complain when you don't get as many turns as Tyler." Had I known then what I know now, that conversation could have gone differently. What I didn't know then is that Maya is an introvert. One thing that introverts need to feel safe is a chance to watch and observe in a new or scary environment before they'll engage. This is why when the first day of school comes around, it can be super stressful for her. Why going to large parties with lots of kids sounds like torture to her. Why, given a choice, she'll never do a team sport or a huge walkathon type fundraiser at school where there are big crowds of people and long lines to wait in. And why she didn't get on the big scary water slide at the pool until it was almost too late. It's not a mom fail to be upset that she's whiny. That's totally normal. I've never met a mom that likes whining. To me, the mom fail was that all day in my head I was comparing her to Tyler. I was mad at her for not being more like her brother. That's not fair. Have you ever done that? Wished one child was more like another? Wouldn't it make your life easier? We've all done it. It doesn't make you a bad mom to have a thought like that. It still makes you feel guilty though, right? Today you may have twinges of guilt as you realize ways that not understanding your child's needs has caused fights. I've felt that way for sure, but keep listening. Would you rather have tiny twinges of guilt and then be able to move forward equipped with a knowledge of your own needs and each of your kids' needs that'll make your interactions more peaceful? Or not listen and keep butting heads and being frustrated with each other? Okay, let's talk about introverts first. The most common misconception is that introverts are shy, but that's not always the case. Introverts are people that have their energy drained by being around lots of people or conversations. It's not that they can't do it. They just feel exhausted after a while of engaging in social environments that to them are overstimulating, and they need some quiet time to recharge their battery. Once I learned this about my daughter, I've been able to help her to say no to social invitations that really aren't a fit for her. And that's why my daughter didn't go to the sleepover where 20 kids were invited. That sounded like torture to her. Instead, she had a sleepover at her best friend's cabin. She got her needs met way more by that one-on-one time. If you have an introvert that doesn't recognize that they're an introvert or even know what that means, they may get an invitation to a social event and hesitate to answer because they don't really want to go. Saying no to a friend is hard for any introvert, no matter what age they are, but it's a very important skill to learn. At first, if somebody asks you to do something that you don't want to do, you'll feel guilty even thinking of saying no. But over time, you'll learn that the joy and freedom that comes from honoring your intuition about whether the activity is a fit for you or not will far outweigh the momentary guilt of hurting someone's feelings. One of the tools we've given our daughter to help her say no without worrying she's going to hurt somebody's feelings too much is we've taught her the art of the counteroffer. What that means is if somebody invites you to do something socially and your initial gut reaction is, no, I don't want to, give yourself some time or space before responding to figure out what about their invitation isn't a fit for you. Is it that you don't want to go to their house? An unpredictable environment? No problem. Let them know you'd love to get together, but ask if they can come to your house instead. Is it that it's too short notice? No problem. Let them know that you'd love to be with them, but give them a later date or two that both work for you to choose from. For example, the other night, one of Maya's friends texted a group of 4 girls and asked if they wanted to meet for frozen yogurt that night. Another thing you need to know about introverts is that they like time to plan and don't like when what they have planned changes unexpectedly last minute. So even though my daughter loves all the girls that were on this group text, she burst into tears because she really wanted to stay home that night and watch So You Think You Can Dance with our family and go to bed early because the next day was the first day of school and she'd had a plan. The tears, I'm sure, were caused by a combination of the last-minute stress of being asked to change plans, combined with the thought of saying no, which she really wanted to do, and all of her friends getting together for yogurt without her, or worse, being mad at her for not coming, which in 6th grade, is the equivalent of social torture. So I helped her make an appropriate counteroffer to relieve her fear of social torture and get all of her needs met. I said, just tell them you already have family plans tonight, but you really want to join them. And if you all go tomorrow after the first day of school, I'll drive everyone home afterward. She did. It worked out perfectly. She went from tears and stress over either being left out or having to change her plans to being ecstatic that she got to stay home and watch So You Think You Can Dance and have a fun date planned with her girlfriend in a matter of minutes. This may seem like a small victory, but for us it's huge. In the past, I might have forced her to go by saying something like, just go. You can watch your show another night. Or, stop crying, it's not that big a deal. But now I understand her world and everything she went through to navigate that social situation. The last thing she needs is pressure or judgment from me making it worse for her. Have you ever run into a situation like that? Tears are flying off your daughter's face and you have no idea why, but you just want to help? Or maybe you've been invited to do something and your gut instantly says, no, I don't want to. But for some inexplicable reason, your mouth says, sure, I'd love to. Don't worry, you're normal. We've all been there. Another thing you need to know about introverts is that introverts don't like small talk. And small talk is usually what happens in group conversations. An introvert would rather talk one-on-one with a close friend than chit-chat with a larger group. This is why I hated going to large family gatherings when I was a kid. If you are, or one of your kids is, an introvert, this may be what you've experienced as well. I was a quiet introvert surrounded by loud extroverts, and it was so overstimulating and exhausting for me to gather with extended family for holidays. Plus, my brother was a funny, boisterous extrovert, so I felt like my childhood could be captured in snapshot after snapshot of him telling a hilarious story about what he was up to in life, and while the crowd was still roaring with laughter, somebody would look at me and say, "How about you, Jenny? What have you been up to?" And the crickets would chirp, and the silence would engulf me. And no matter what I'd say, there's no way to be anything but quiet and boring in the wake of the three-ring circus that an extrovert is, if that's what you're compared to all your life. I felt a lot of shame when I realized my daughter was an introvert and I was comparing her to my extroverted son, because it took me right back to my childhood. I realized that my daughter is me, and I was putting the pressure on her that my family put on me all of my life to be extroverted, or will make you feel like you're boring and not worth listening to. So that's another thing you need to know about introverts. They're not boring. They actually do have a lot to say about what's important to them. Most people just never ask, or don't even come close to listening long enough before they interrupt and start talking again. Introverts hate being put on the spot to talk. If they realize that the person that asked them a question isn't really listening or doesn't really want to know the answer, but is actually just waiting for their turn to talk again, an introvert usually will not share. That is why people mistakenly think introverts have nothing to say. They do. They just know when someone's not going to listen anyway, so they don't waste their breath. The best way to hear the heart of an introvert is to wait patiently. Don't interrupt, and give them more time than you think is necessary to respond when you ask them a question. I know I said I'd talk about extroverts and ambiverts too, but I had so much to say about introverts that'll have to wait until next week's podcast. I'll end this podcast with some gems. In podcast 2, we talked about how amazing it would have been if, before you became a mother, somebody would have let you know how you are uniquely wired to win at the game of motherhood and what you'd need to be successful along the way. Well, this information about introverts would have been really helpful for me. What this person would have said to me is, "Jenny, you are an introvert. Don't worry, you're going to be a great mom." The first 5 years will be pretty draining, though. You'll think that you hate your kids if you don't spend time alone recharging your batteries and doing things you love just for you. Find great books to get lost in and protect at least an hour a day for yourself. Every day. Figure out your favorite way to move your body, not to be skinny, but just because your brain will cooperate with you more if you release endorphins and happy chemicals regularly through some type of movement. Walk, dance, swim, run. It doesn't matter what. Just experiment until you find what you love and then pick something and move your body regularly. And schedule dates with other moms so that you can enjoy the benefit of one-on-one conversation with somebody else that's in the same boat. If you don't have another mom friend, listen to podcasts. Get a noise-canceling headset and use it to listen to spa radio when you don't want to listen to babies babble. Journal about what you're thankful for regularly. If you feel yourself yelling at your kids as they get older and whinier, and you find yourself turning into the Hulk, don't worry. You're not an angry bitch. You just aren't getting enough quiet time. Schedule more time alone to recharge. I worry a little that describing some of the traits of introverts could leave you with a negative impression of their abilities or capabilities. So let me tell you some of the things that I love about my introverted daughter and about my introverted self. We're amazing listeners. which makes us really good friends. We prefer going deep with a few, so we tend to be really loyal to those friends we've grown to love. We're very creative and great at self-entertaining. My daughter can spend all day blissfully making a craft she saw on YouTube, and I can spend all day reading a good book or writing a podcast. We're great planners. We ruminate in our thoughts about what didn't work in the past, and we plan to make it better in the future, so we're great at things that we get multiple opportunities to try. We're intuitive. We usually have a great read of what emotions are occurring in the room around us, and we can use that like a superpower. It makes people think that we're mind readers. We're pretty organized, so you can count on us to have something you might need or know where things are when other people don't. We love things to be visually pleasing, so the space around us is usually very clean. Now, this may or may not apply to all introverts. I've heard that I'm a little extreme in my desire for minimalism, but my friends love me anyway, even though my house kind of looks like a VRBO. We're cheap dates. We'd rather watch a movie at home than go out anyway, so we save money. We're steady and predictable. We're not going to surprise you too much, so you can be clear on what you can count on us for and what you can't count on us for. The final thing I'll tell you about introverts is that our inner monologue is pretty constant and loud. Remember the TV show Scrubs, where the doctor, JD, would look off to the side in the middle of a conversation, and he'd be completely distracted by his thoughts and would totally forget the people right in front of him? That happens to introverts a lot. That's why sometimes we have resting bitch face, or we don't answer questions out loud right away. Our thoughts are sometimes louder than your question. Hang in there. We'll be right with you. This happens to me sometimes when somebody gives me a compliment and then there's this awkward silence because I said thank you in my head, but I didn't actually say it out loud. I know that's kind of embarrassing. Anyway, any other introverts have that problem? A more common introvert problem is that people think you're mad because of the look on your face, but you're not mad, you're just thinking. I'll post a funny video about resting bitch face in the Happy Moms Wine Club Facebook page so you can understand what I'm talking about and laugh with me. I'll leave you today with something I found on Pinterest. 10 problems only introverts will understand. But first, let me tell you what we'll talk about next week. On next week's podcast, I'm going to tell you all about extroverts and how I did the reverse mom fail with my son that my parents did with me. I'll tell you how that went and what I know now that makes it much easier to get his needs met, even though they're opposite from mine. If you're an extrovert, you can tune in next week and learn all about you and the extroverts in your life. Extra credit for you if you keep listening now, though, to understand the introverts that you love a little bit more. If you're an introvert, this will be validating. Here are 10 problems only introverts will understand. 1. Carrying a book to a public place so no one will bug you, but other people take that as a conversation starter. Dope. 2. When your friend wants to invite more people and you don't want to sound like a bad person by saying no. 3. When your ride at a party doesn't want to leave and no one seems to understand your distress. 4. Feeling like you're annoying the person that you want to talk to so you don't talk to them. Then you worry that they think you don't like them because you don't talk to them. 5. The feeling of dread that washes over you when the phone rings and you're not mentally prepared to chat. 6. When you have an awesome night out but have to deal with feeling exhausted for days after the fact. 7. People interrupting your thoughts and you get irrationally angry. 8. Dreading your own birthday because it means you have to be on all day long. Oh. 9. When people mistake your thoughtful look for being shy, depressed, or moody. 10. Making a phone call and thinking, please don't answer, please don't answer, please don't answer. Okay, that's the list. I hope all the introverts listening feel validated. Thank you for listening. Go pour another glass of wine and grab a good book. I'll talk to you next week. If you'd like to be notified each time we release a new podcast episode so you don't miss out on any of these conversations, hit subscribe now in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. I would love to hear your mom stories and connect with you on our Happy Moms Wine Club Facebook page too. Tell me what made you laugh in a certain podcast or what else you'd love to hear about. If you want to join our actual Happy Moms Wine Club, and learn about how to get amazing wine delivered to your doorstep for free, go to happymomswineclub.com now. See you next week.